Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another edition of the Christian Recorder Dialogues. This is your friendly editor, John Thomas III. We are here with Mr. Robert Nicholas from AME SATA. As usual, we ask you to put your district, your name in the chat, anything to let us know that you're here. Today's discussion is prompted by the events that we've been having in this country over the last, since January the 20th. And we're going to talk about SATA, the AME Service and Development Agency. And a more brief and more generally, how the Trump cuts to USAID have impacted this valuable ministry of the AME Church. Mr. Nicholas, thank you for being with us here today, and welcome to the Christian Recorder Dialogues.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead, Mr. Nicholas, first and tell us a brief history about the AME Service and Development Agency. And we see you're in your lovely office based from Washington, D.C. in the McKinney building. But first, give us a brief history of AME SATA.
Well, AME SATA was created about 44 years ago by some illustrious members of the church. And it started out... These first programs were in Haiti, a small vaccination program, which grew quickly. And then also, after a few years, started to do some work in parts of Africa, namely South Africa, with the construction of or reconstruction or reopening of one of the AME schools outside of Johannesburg. And again, all of this with funds, not only from the AME Church, but from outside of the AME Church, from various foundations. But one of the largest ones was with the United States Agency for International Development, from whom we've gotten several $1 million over the years, all going into our programs in Haiti and in South Africa. And so that's essentially how we grew. And most recently, despite this growth, we had a rather abrupt stoppage of these funds as of late January of this year, when the new administration basically, essentially, for all intents and purposes, shut down the United States Agency for International Development. So that meant the funds we were getting about a little more than $500,000, which finance all of our health programs in Haiti, which is 7 clinics, outpatient clinics, which were providing services to over 200,000 people per year. And all of that stopped abruptly. We had a 1-day notice to basically tell the staff to stay home. So that meant we lost over 200 people, consisting of nurses, health agents, traditional birth attendants, laboratory technicians, pharmacy technicians, nurses assistants, drivers, the whole staff of some 200 people, which worked out of our offices and clinics in Haiti, providing these services. And some people had been with us 15, 20 years, and we had to just say, don't come back Monday. Literally, it was a Friday afternoon. Friday morning, we received a letter, and I had to basically stop operations. What we were able to do, thanks to the generosity of a number of churches and bishops, is we're able, and the budget that we have for basically to cover our office here in Washington, we're able to continue to keep what is just a skeletal crew to keep these clinics open so that they don't get destroyed or pillaged or anything like that, so that we can keep up a presence. But this also meant we had to shut down our office in West Africa. The activities in South Africa had ceased because the funding was over for the construction several years ago, but we were still looking for new activities to get back to the community college that we were working with there. But so in a nutshell, that's where we are today, where in Haiti, the clinics have just 1 or 2 people in them, just so there's some opening. We had to stop all of our vaccination programs, which covered literally thousands of children, and all of our prenatal programs, again, for thousands of pregnant women, and all the birthing support that we were providing, again, several hundred births every month. That had to stop. all of the well baby visits that we were doing, and equally importantly, the malnutrition recuperation that we were doing for over 1,000 children every month. And also equally important, we have about 700 HIV/AIDS patients, including young children, who we can continue to give them their medication, but we cannot do any of the tests that they need to make sure that they're staying healthy. We cannot give the nutritional support that they need. And again, we're dealing with HIV/AIDS patients in an area severely underprivileged. And so that if you give HIV/AIDS medication without nutritional support, you're putting the life of that patient in even greater danger. So it leaves us in a very, very difficult situation where we have to basically look at these patients and we can do very little to help them. And people who've been depending on it. And the area where we have clinics in Haiti, there's nothing else. If you don't have to go to the clinic, you don't have the services, period. There's
So
nobody else.
Let's dial. And I'm familiar with AME SATA. I'm through my work in the general board and just being someone who, has worked in another lifetime. I've worked, in development work and at the World Bank. So I'm familiar with what SATA does. But for the average AME member who may only see that $250,000 that we give to SATA every year, which basically covers your office in DC and your salary, or even part of your salary, because you're expected to make money to help get M fees from the grants. But to think that the AME Church is to date one of the only Black churches, Black denominations that has a development NGO. I mean, everyone here has probably heard of, maybe heard of Catholic Relief Services, or maybe you've heard of like Lutheran World Relief, or maybe even United Methodist Committee on Relief. AME SATA was founded by us to serve like that. And we could talk about over the years how the AME Church has invested what we could in SATA, but achieving this USAID grant was a huge thing for us to be able to do these resources. And we are, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, we're like the only, or one of the only Black churches with something like this. And to have this happen to us, for example, United Methodist Committee on Relief, the Catholics, and Lutheran World Relief, they're already saying the cessation of USAID grants has handicapped them. For us, though, this was an even bigger concern because of the resources that we have as a church and just where SATA's been in our bottom line. So could the AME Church fully fund all of what SATA does?
Well, I suppose technically yes, but not with the current budget that we have, because we were bringing in from USAID about $500,000 a year. And then the previous year, we were also bringing in another $500,000 from Kellogg, and that grant ended this past December. So, and we were looking for new grants, but at that time we thought we had the AID grant, and so not that we were taking our time, but we were looking, and it wasn't an easy search, and it still isn't easy, and now it's worse than ever, because literally the billions of dollars that USAID was giving to organizations like us and organizations much bigger than we are, they're also out there looking for replacement grants, whether it's individual donors, whether it's other foundations. So it's a battle, literally a battle, because we're competing with organizations that are much bigger than we are, and that have resources where they have, entire staffs writing proposals, etc. And so it's a difficult situation. And despite all of the help that we've received to kind of keep us afloat for now, and like you said, the AME Church gives us a budget so that I can keep my office open and I have a little bit of a staff, and I can still use some of the money to contribute to the skeletal crew we're trying to keep those clinics open, because if they close, that'll be an even bigger disaster, because it's an infrastructure that literally took us 30 years to put together.
Mm.
So
Now,
we don't want to just shut that down and let nature take its course, have it looted or whatever is going to happen.
Now, when you mentioned that the SATA clinic is the only clinic for these places in Haiti, help us, the average, again, the person on this call who may not be familiar with Haitian geography or may have heard of Port-au-Prince, because we know the two main cities, Port-au-Prince in the south and Cape Haitien in the north. So where are our clinics?
Our clinics, the 5 clinics that we have remaining are all outside of Port-au-Prince, up in the mountains, overlooking Port-au-Prince, we can say. It's a very mountainous country, so it's a good 2, 3, or 4 hours away from Port-au-Prince by car, not because the distance is so long, but because the roads are so bad. And so we had put those clinics in population centers that were underserved or not served at all prior to our coming. And so that's why I say that if those clinics are not providing services, then each one of them has a population surrounded by a population of anywhere from 30 to 50,000 people who no longer have medical services. Because not only did we have people coming to the clinics for the services, but we had a whole network of health agents, traditional birth attendants, and also mobile clinics who went to those communities because the area is mountainous. People might have had to walk 2 to 4 hours to come to, or longer, to come to our clinic. So that's why we had a lot of outreach activities going on. Each clinic has between 20 and 30 health agents who go out to the community and give all of the preventive services they can. And then also on a monthly or quarterly basis, depending on the area, we had teams which were made up of doctor, nurses, lab techs, etc., which went to the population, the centers of population, and that meant they were either doing it by car, if a car could go, but most of the time it was either on donkey or muleback to be able to take all their need, and then stay for 2 to 5 days in a school, in a church, whatever was available in the area, and see patients almost around the clock. And that's how we did the services. And if somebody needed referral, then that have to do the 2 to 4 hour walk to the clinic to do whatever needed to be done.
Now, I know we had talked about, and when I was visiting you in DC earlier this year, we talked about our anchor clinic, which was next to St. Paul, Port-au-Prince, in what could argue downtown Port-au-Prince, and what's happened to that clinic?
This was the very first clinic that AME SADA had, and it was completely destroyed by the gangs in the area and looted. And so, I mean, the destruction was such that it was hard to see. I mean, walls were destroyed. I don't know if they thought we had hidden something in the walls or what. But aside from taking all patient records, throwing them all over this floor, etc., any piece of equipment that could be carried away was carried away. Whether it was a window, a sink, a desk, glass for the window, whatever it was, everything was looted out of there. Needless to say, the medication and whatever equipment we had also disappeared. We lost 2 clinics like that, one right in Port-au-Prince at St. Paul's, and thank God they didn't touch the church. The church remains standing, even though they're not able to really have any kind of consistent services because the members of the church can't come to the area because it's infested with gang activity, and it's a risk of life to just walk into the area. But the church was spared. Nothing was looted. It wasn't attacked. And as you may or may not remember, it was completely rebuilt. St. Paul's was completely rebuilt after the earthquake under Bishop. No, it was not Bishop. It was
Bishop Davis.
Bishop Davis. Yes, Bishop Davis was the one who rebuilt that church.
And speaking of Bishop Davis, I was watching something in the 2nd District, and I saw WMS President Deborah Taylor King raising funds for the Sarah Davis Clinic, saying, the WMS have to do this clinic. We have to support this clinic. What have AMEs already done? Can we detail a little bit about what's been going on, how we've been helping to keep you afloat in terms of your board, in terms of the WMS? And let's talk about that right now for a second.
We've received about $20,000 so far in individual donations. Some of them have come through WMS. Some of them have come directly to us. Some of them have come through members of our board. And that's what has helped us to keep afloat since January, since the end of January, I should say. And in addition to whatever I can squeeze from my existing budget, which we pour into that area. And with the help of WMS, we're going, because they have a request out there for people to do donations, and we're trying to put together a campaign where we will be writing directly to some of the people, any of the people who had given us support before, to ask for support again, and even expanding that list to the extent that we can, to basically ask for individual donations. No matter what the donation is, it'll go directly into the support of these clinics, and if possible, even some of the work that we're trying to pull together in parts of West Africa or South Africa.
So I want to say this again for the people who are watching this and our audience. You've probably seen an advertisement on TV for, CARE, Save the Children, or World Vision or something. Understand that the AME Church has the AME Service and Development Agency, that our biggest grant was $500,000 that was being used to help our clinics in Haiti, and we were exploring work in West Africa. We've already done good work. Wolfworth Community College in South Africa would not be where it is had not AME SADA gotten a grant. So again, $500,000 was the anchor fund. And I want you all to think about this, as those who are watching this, and think about, I just want y'all to think about this. And I'm not trying to get, in trouble with any of my colleagues or the bench of bishops or anyone, but just think about where we allocate, where we give, who we invite to give money to. AMEs are a very generous people, but generosity has to begin at home. And to think that if AME SATA just lost $500,000 out of their budget because of USAID's implosion, one should ask, what can the AME Church connectionally do to help? And I hope that someone is listening to this message. And that's why we're doing this interview right before the General Board, because specifically some people said that the implosion of USAID was considered was an ELE, or it was an extinction level event for aid and the global aid ecosphere. You've been in global development projects for years. Can you tell us a little bit about what the implosion of USAID or U.S. involvement in aid projects has done overall, so we can get a good understanding of what's happened here?
What's happened is that, if I take the example of what happened to SADA, by comparison, we're a tiny little organization. And just with what we're not getting, we have close to 200,000 people who no longer get health services. And that's just SADA. Multiply that by whatever you want, because you had organizations who are getting millions of dollars for some of the same things that we're doing, whether it's in health, in nutrition, in HIV/AIDS, etc. And even in HIV/AIDS, where there were court orders where they were supposed to continue to give the money. That one, we were receiving it through another organization as a subcontractor. And we continued to receive the medication for the HIV drugs, the antiretrovirals. However, you cannot just give antiretrovirals like you give an aspirin. The person has to be followed. You have to have blood tests. You have to have exams. And as I mentioned earlier, in an area where people are seriously economically disadvantaged, you need to give nutritional support. Otherwise, either the drugs don't work or they may kill the patient because of that. So this is a small part, and we're looking at billions of dollars that were eliminated from that whole sector of assistance. And for some reason, the current administration has something against assistance. For them, it's a dirty word. The fact that somebody is poor, they can't eat, they can't get services, it's something evil. Helping your fellow man or woman is bad in their eyes. So this is why organizations like us, we're not going to get anything from them.
and just seeing in the current budget how they basically, the proposal is to slash aid everywhere.
Even
And
worse, even worse. Not only did they not put it in the new budget for the next fiscal year, but any money left, they're putting before the Congress to do what is officially called a rescission. Take that money back, put it in Treasury, so that in a way, we were lucky that we were able to get money for January because the money had been given to us the month before. And so we were able to spend that money. But technically, if we hadn't spent it by the time the gave us the stop work order, I was supposed to give that back. Luckily, we had already spent it. I had already transferred it to Haiti. But this is so that it's even worse. Money that hadn't been put out there yet to the designated recipients is being given back to Treasury. And also all international organizations, whether it's all the UN organizations, UNICEF, World Health, and we know how the current administration feels about these organizations.
And they want to take
that is gone.
They want to take this money and put it into this Make America Great Fund for targeted assistance, which basically is throwing grants to your friends.
Basically, because it's a special grant window, for lack of a better word, which will be controlled by the White House. They'll be able to do whatever they want with it. Supposedly, is to be able to deal with emergencies, but we know their definitions have been slightly different from ours. But it's going to be put entirely in the hands of the White House. Whatever money is left, technically for international assistance, they're going to control it all. And like you say, we know what they'll be using it for.
And again, I remind everyone that's the proposal. We're well away from it being passed in Congress. Made it to the House, but there's so much stuff that has to happen at the Senate. But understand that one of the reasons why foreign aid was attacked was because many people don't know. And I'm sure the average AME, we've had this on here before to talk, but the average AME may not know that the AME Church is strongly involved and has been involved in foreign aid to the point where we were one of the people targeted by the Trump administration, one of the groups targeted. Remember, Mr. Nicholas, tell us a little bit that, like, in the White House, they mentioned an AME SATA project as a reason why foreign aid should be eliminated, and we had to publish a response to that. Remember that, Mr. Nicholas?
And what was even so horrific about that, they made it sound like the AME Church, AME SATA, had taken some money and built an auditorium without any details whatsoever, just, I guess, for fun or showing whatever. But yes, there was an auditorium, but it was a multi-purpose conference center built on the campus of the school in outside of Johannesburg. And it was a large auditorium used for testing, for community events, etc. Not in the United States. Is part of the grant to expand the campus. It was basically a large lecture hall that the campus needed as it was expanding its student body. So it wasn't something built next to a church in the United States for God knows whatever purpose they thought that we were going to do with it. It was part of a school.
I mean, these people aren't, say what you will about them, but they're not stupid. They cherry picked what sounded good to try to make a point that was.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that we're having this discussion, the fact that near almost 70 years of aid policy has been upturned in less than 5 months, the fact that we are looking at our good work at Haiti. Again, Mr. Lucas gave the number. 200,000 people in Haiti relied on AME SATA for services.
And if I may add, in the so-called auditorium, money from USAID/ASHA, which is a special office for helping schools and health services, 2/3 of that money came from USAID. The rest came from the AME Church. The bishop who was there at that time helped raise funds, and other contributions that we get, because ASHA doesn't give you 100% of the money you need for that construction. You have to raise a third of it. It's usually anywhere from a third to a little bit less, but not all the money for that for the construction. That school altogether, over a period of several years, absorbed about $6 million in construction funds from USAID ASHA. The rest of the money, another almost $3 million, came from the AME Church to complete that construction.
I mean, the cruelty. Let's go on there. The cruelty of this administration, both internationally and nationally. And you said it. It's like basically it's a war on poor people.
It really is. It's like being poor is, in their eyes, the worst thing you can do, as if this is something you plan to do. And to give assistance to someone who does not have, and in all of this, they claim to be Christians. What Bible they're following is out of my league, but it's very difficult to swallow. Very difficult to swallow.
So we have a general board meeting coming up in a couple of days. By the time this airs, general board is going to be is the week after we're airing this. So my question is, well, I've said this, if you see Mr. Nicholas will be at the general board, I strongly encourage those of you who are watching this, put something in Mr. Nicholas's hand for AME SATA. But more broadly, what can we do as AMEs to help SATA? And candidly, what is the future for SATA?
Well, the two things. You mentioned earlier that this budget is being discussed, has passed the House, but it has not passed the Senate. So everyone who has a vote, who has a senator, needs to be contacting their senator about protecting not only international assistance, but that whole list of domestic issues, because domestically, money for poor people in the United States, for health insurance, for housing, you name it, is being reduced so that they can give tax cuts to their friends. That's one. Secondly, we are working on a plan to begin to do fundraising differently than what we've done in the past, so that we are going to be contacting people, sending out letters, basically asking for individual donations, so that we're no longer reliant on just one large donor. We're going to continue to go after large donors wherever there may be such opportunities, but we're going to have to come up with we're in process of coming up with a serious plan to go after individual donations. Person who can give us $1, $5, or whatever amount they can give us, we will accept. And one of the advantages that we have, is because we have funds that come from the connection, so that if you give $1, $1 is spent. I don't have to take administrative cuts from it to be able to run my office, because my office is covered by the budget that we get from the connection.
I just can't not believe that basically is the equivalent. Is like if we were to look at an AMB service, say, okay, I need 500 people to give $1,000, or 1,000 people to give five. I refuse to believe that within our church we don't have the people who could help and make sure that our work goes forward. But again, it begs the question, we relied on USAID, but at the end of the day, charity begins at home. And so I hope those that see this will put something in Ms. Nicholas's hand and continue to put something in SATA's hand. But, as one who studies development, and you've been in the development industry for years. You have a long history in this. So what is the future for this world of development? Like for NGOs like SATA, what's the future?
The future is we have to be able to do it independently. That has to be our commitment, because to the extent that I can approach a foundation like we have in the past, like Kellogg Foundation, etc., who've been very generous with us in the past, and others that we will be seeking from, to the extent that we can, we're not going to ignore them, but no longer we will be caught on simply relying, not that it's simple, but to relying solely on these large foundations for large grants. We will continue to go after them, but we are also going to have our own base so that we can say we get X thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, and that'll even help in using it as a matching against some of these foundations, because now a lot of them are requiring a matching when they give you a grant.
So for those who are interested in learning more about SATA and what SATA does, where can they go visit?
Well, we're in the process of redoing our website right now to update all kinds of things, but the website is www.ame-sada.org. And in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be updated with new information so that we can, and also people can not only can send donations directly to us by check, but also you can get on the website and make a donation with a credit card. And we also have Giveify, and then we're going to be also opening an account with Zelle and a couple other opportunities.
So the next time you think about, going to Starbucks or, buying an ad for something or, the next banquet you're at, consider the fact that some of that money needs to go to help the work that we do to help the least of these, because the AME Church has been doing this for nearly 40 years. SATA's been in business. Going 50 years, almost 50 years.
Yeah, almost 50 years now.
Yeah. So,
and the fact that every dollar that's given is used exclusively for the activity, because we don't need to take administrative costs from it to run the office or do anything with it.
And that's a huge selling point. That's a huge selling point. Well, again, this is Nicholas. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day, because I know I caught you literally in the middle of dialing for dollars. But we want to do this before General Board. We're going to air this probably, like I said, we're going to air this for General Board because we need people to see and understand this. But again, thank you so much. Any final words that you'd like to share with the AME Church regarding SATA and the work and your tenure, because you've been at SATA now for how many years?
It's almost 20 years.
Wow.
Coming near the end of my tenure here.
So just give us a few words before you go.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me this platform. And also I want to thank the members of the AME Church who over the years have been extremely generous, and have allowed us to do this work. And that's why I feel comfortable in calling on members of the church again, because you've done it already. So it's just a question of continuing to do what you've been doing, because without it, we can't go forward at all.
All right, folks. Well, you see the website below. Many of you will see Mr. Nicholas at the General Board meeting, and you just won't be the last to hear from us regarding SATA, but we encourage you to be generous and support the good work that they're doing. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We will see you all next time.
Thank you very much.